One of the most important aspects of this assignment is really learning from leaders, taking a look at what has been done before and getting a sense of what you can do. Technologies might change a little bit, implementations might change a little bit. The things that we can do with mobile learning are different than what we could do even, 8 or 9 years ago. There's some minor changes that happen with the technology, but overall, the implementation of technology, if it's done properly, it's done to enhance the learning. And the focus is on the learning. And that's a key thing. There's many examples of technology implementations that do enhance the learning. We want you to learn from those. And I need to reiterate, perhaps one of the most important things you need to recognize is that whether you're doing a one-to-one blended ePortfolio, STEM Maker Lab, or Makerspace, or whatever it is, you need to focus on the learning. That's the key thing. We've pointed you to the Alan November article about why schools must move beyond one-to-one computing to emphasize how important it is for you to focus on the learning first. Because if you don't focus on the learning, you can fall into the traps that we have seen over the many, many decades with educational technology, where the technology was focused on first and the implementation had an emphasis on the technology, and while the technology got into the students' hands, it often didn't make a difference, or no significant difference, or it actually got in the way. And so you have an opportunity to do this right, but you've got to focus on the learning first. It's crucial that you really plan out the learning and then find ways where then technology can enhance that. That's why you want to take a look at a wide assortment of examples that we've pointed you to, and you've done your literature review, so it's really important. I'm going to point to some examples from previous students, and I want to really emphasize some key things that these students have done, and I think you can follow along the footpath of these particular students. So here we have the STEM toolkit, right? And the emphasis is really on looking at the students, the student involvement, what is happening in terms of what computational thinking is, the learning environment design, looking at the outcomes. Everything in this first phase is really looking at the learning, having the students involved, getting them participating in the project, having them then look at what needs to be done in terms of moving the ideas forward. But it isn't until the 7th or 8th point where they start looking at the technology. It's about the learning first. So in the phase one, and then continual work throughout the other phases are really about looking at making that connection between the learning and the teachers and the students and the projects that are going on. It's really about learning. So the computational thinking is really about the learning. It's about creating that type of a learning environment where people move down that path. And then later on, yes, you're looking at the website, you're looking at social media, you're looking at all those other things. But these are further phases down the road where you also take a look at assessment, right? With this other innovation plan, Caymans, there's another perspective that I think is going to be important, and that is you have to include the people who are involved in the project. And so this previous student recognized, there's a lot of administrators who are going to be involved, and you need to communicate with them and find out where they're at and share the ideas, and emphasize that it's not about the tools, it's about the learning, it's about the outcomes for the students. Again, the emphasis is on the learning. This is really, really important. We're not ignoring the technology, we're not ignoring the implementation, but we're putting the innovation into the context of the learning environment and the learning design. Really, really important. And it's important to focus on the people. So if you look back at Mike's example, again, he was emphasizing the people. Innovation is about the people. It's about moving the people. It's about having people do things that are different. It is about the people and the technology, but it's added in after. So it's about the people. It's about the learning. So I want you to go down that path. Think of the learning. Think of the people. Think of what's involved, right? So if you take a look at Cayman's example, there's many phases, and he goes over a lot of points over the years, a couple of years. And we've a variety of phases. I think he's got 4 phases here, including the validation. And guess what? You're looking at a validation, a measurement stage with the EDLD 5315. So a lot of these phases that you're going to be looking at, you're going to have an opportunity to experiment and come back to this list. I think one of the most important things that I need to emphasize is that these implementation strategies are a starting point. The reason we ask you to do them in a point form fashion is that, guess what? They're going to be changing. As you start to work with people, as different issues come up, you're able to make adjustments to your plan. As you move forward in the program and you go into the organizational change course 5304, you'll start to recognize there's other things you need to add. You need to include different things. There's different things that you need to look at. When you're looking at the learning, in 5313, the course on learning theories and the learning environment, you're going to recognize just how important that design is. So there's going to be opportunities for you to return to this and keep on adding ideas. So make sure you do this in a point form basis. Now you will see some there. We do have a couple examples where the students did a PowerPoint. That's tough to pull off, and I do have one example where one student has done that, and again, she was actually presenting that, and that was being used, and she also printed that those slides out for her audience. So there was a specific purpose for that, and if that is your case, you can go down that path, but I still think you should have this point form foundation. So hopefully I've identified the key things here. Remember, it's about the learning. It's about the learning environment. It's about the people. It's about the engagement. Once you've identified those key things, then you can focus on how the technology is used. Then you can select the different components. But even then, be careful, because in 18 months, you might be looking at a different platform, right? Things change in a short period of time, especially with technology. So even in this stage, when you're identifying the pieces, be open enough so you can make those adjustments. Don't nail yourself down to one particular product, because that product could go away, or it could change, or it might be modified to the point where you need to use something else. So keep those things in mind. Once again, this is a starting point. It's an outline, 2-3 pages, and hopefully I provide some ideas here that will help you be successful in terms of building out the different phases and building out your plan, and helping you to build out a learning environment that's going to be engaged and improve your learning.